We have some breaking news in this, and I'm joined by MS Now investigative reporter Mark Santia, and it involves the border agents who were involved in the shooting, correct, of Alex Preddy?
Yeah, absolutely. This is confirmed from an official who has direct knowledge. We're told the Border Patrol agents involved in the death of Alex Preddy have been placed on paid administrative leave. The two agents who fired the shots, they've met with a mental health professional, we're told. That's standard operating procedure for Border Patrol for any agent involved in a fatal incident. Now, the ability to meet with a mental health professional was also offered to all agents who were involved in the death of Alex Preddy, who were there at that fatal incident. It is an automatic 3-day administrative leave, we're told. And if the agents return to work, Chris, that would be desk duty. It would not be field work. And that would continue as long as the investigation continues. So it would be desk duty, modified duty if they return to work, but no field work. They would not be in the community.
So one way to look at this, Basil, is to say, well, they're taking them off the street because there had been word that they had been moved elsewhere, but they were still working. But as Mark just points out, this is SOP. This is what is supposed to be done, right? They're supposed to meet with a mental health professional. They're not supposed to be out there again until there can be a real investigation. I wonder how you read this now. How many days after the shooting are we?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, the question I have is, should they have been out there in the first place? Stephen Miller said they broke protocol. What is protocol when on average, these newer ICE agents are being trained for 42, 47 days? When you have police departments that don't have that federal authority being trained for months at a time. So I question whether they even knew protocol. So sitting them at a desk is, I don't even think that's minimal. I don't know that they should be out there in uniform with a badge, with a gun at all, ever. And that's real. To April's earlier point, and as I've been saying, this is an agency that has been given billions of dollars to do what other federal agencies can't do or won't do, but do at the president's behest. And when he's recruiting these individuals, he's using language about taking back your country, about going after, and he said it, criminals and monsters. When you put that language, when you imbue federal agencies with that kind of power and that kind of authority with that language, you have to expect this kind of reaction by those folks with long guns in American streets. They're going to take the action that you set them out there to do. So I don't care what words he says now. He's put all of this in motion.
April, I'm thinking back to, and I'm going to think it was 2017, when the president was talking about people who are suspects, and he basically said to law enforcement folks, you need to be rougher with them. So this is no change for him, but I wonder what your reaction is to this.
My reaction is that we know who the president is when it comes to policing. Like you said, he said, be a little bit rougher with them. I would be a little bit more rougher with him. And some of the police organizations did come out and say that this is not who we are. But think about this. There is $2 million in this massive DHS appropriations bill that's slated, only $2 million that's slated for de-escalation of efforts, de-escalation efforts out in the street for ICE. Only $2 million. But also, I'm thinking back to 2022, Chris, with Joe Biden, when he came up with the federal executive order about bad policing. And I've got it right here. It was Executive Order 14074. It dealt with federal law enforcement mandates. The order requires federal agencies to revise use of force policies, banning chokeholds and restricting no-knock warrants unless authorized for high-risk situations. Also, national enforcement accountability, a database, et cetera, and also body cameras. We don't necessarily have to wait for the Senate. The president, if this is really something that he wants to deal with, he could create his own executive order and curtail how this is happening. He could also mandate more training, et cetera, and de-escalation tactics if he wanted to. If he wanted to. Let's see, the ball is in his court. The Senate's going to put pressure on him with his vote tomorrow night, but the ball is in his court to show what he thinks about these policing tactics, this bad policing that we're seeing in Minnesota and around the country.
Well, we have seen no shyness from this president about issuing an executive order. But, Basil, let me take it back to where we started, which was the op-ed from George Will, the column by George Will. What does it say to any American out there if you have to start from the premise in all of this that your government is lying to you?
Well, to April's point, the civil rights movement has been, going back to the abolitionist movement, has been the basis for all progressive movements in this country. And part of the premise of those movements is that the government is treating a group of people unfairly based on a rubric and a framework that is inherently untrue and false. And so what I would say is to continue to keep the pressure on. You know, the fact is that this president has intentionally removed every measure of accountability and transparency that could exist in the federal government, taking the civil rights departments either shut them down completely or starve them so that they can't engage in any function of oversight. So this should alarm everybody, because there is no redress. There is no going to the higher authority except for a Donald Trump. And if the Republican voters that have supported him, or any voter that supported him, if they're feeling uncomfortable, understand that that discomfort comes from a real place, and join everybody else who's feeling exactly the same thing, because you're not alone. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. So I would say keep this pressure on, continue to be in these streets peacefully, do what you need to do to call attention to these issues. And for those in Washington, the members of the House and the Senate, do not back down, because this might be a short moment, but it is a moment to actually potentially affect change.